Jesse Watson.
Now then, there's a fella who I've rather fallen in love with. He's a complete mad professor. Terrence, what's his second name? I don't even know his second name. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast recently. A polymath. Completely, a bonkers chap. Incredibly creative, with a huge amount of interest, enthusiasm, and ideas.
So, if we start with this as electricity, then we want to go to the very first phase from it. The first thing that happens to it is it decays. The first line of decay, and that first line of decay is literally just putting on two magnetic fields. If you'll hold that for a second, I've got to get something else out.
I gotta say,
go ahead.
I love these things.
They're pretty
really,
dope.
They're really dope.
Yeah, you need a shelf in your office.
Yeah, for sure. I put this in my house, but Terrence, I just don't see.
We're not done.
All right.
We're not done.
All right.
So when you put...
Didn't you see the box it came in with, bro?
What kind of box?
That
No.
box of stuff.
As a fellow polymath, as a fellow Renaissance man, I wanted to send him a message. I have zero confidence that it will get through, but I wanted to just say something there, because I've made these films recently about the very thing. I watched that and I was writing something about it. He's got into a kerfuffle because he's attempted to pose his ideas as a challenge, so to speak, to challenge the academic, to pose them in the academic arena, in the scientific arena. He's attempted to direct his ideas there, and as so many, he's attempting to get recognition for his ideas from the academic or scientific community, if there is such a thing, in those arenas. Now, I myself have kind of been on the journey, in a way, in different ways, but that he's kind of on there. And I found it a very interesting thing to watch, partly because if you see the podcast, it's a brilliant... It almost brought tears to my eyes at one moment to see that it was such a loving conversation. Obviously, people have lots of different feelings about it, but to me, Eric Weinstein was exemplary in his... he had great patience and treated him in a very loving way, to my eye. And I think, to my eye, I don't think Eric quite singled it out, but I think he was basically trying to get to what I want to say here. He was trying to warn, in a way, he was trying to warn Terrence away from posing his ideas as scientific hypotheses, as something that would, something requesting recognition from academia, because he knew it wasn't going to happen. He's not in a position, Terrence didn't know the language, the terminology, all of that stuff. He didn't have the kind of minutiae, rigorous, tedious kind of, not to discredit it, but yeah, he wasn't in that place. Terrence is an ideas man, a polymath, somebody who explores lots of ideas. And so to my eye, I had that battle myself. I talked about it in my long series called How to Win Your Freedom, The Renaissance Man Mindset, and various other titles. I can never decide on a title for my works. But yes, Terrence was going in that direction. And I wanted to just mention it because I think it's something that we've really, to just clarify it, because it's something that is that's getting forgotten. There's another way of doing it that avoids all of that, that avoids getting into that entrenched battleground of academic, scientific publishing and proving of one's ideas, particularly in a field that, as Terrence was getting into, and it's similar in ways to an idea I had about lost craft using fire to build megaliths with. It's the kind of thing that, it's such a big idea. It's the kind of idea that polymaths are well positioned to make, an idea which encompasses a huge amount of area, and which literally, which may not even be possible in a lifetime to publish, to prove, to support and publish as an academic paper, because it's got such a huge scope. And so for me, you're only going to set yourself back with an idea like that by thinking that you're going to get it accepted and recognized in the academic arena, if academia is even the right, in that, amongst the established institutions and all of that business. So to me, the answer I came up for personally to that is I suddenly realized, well, artistry is the way to present these ideas. If you have a muse, an idea, you can about any subject, any topic, if you present it in a creative, artistic manner that makes no claim to authority, that makes no claim to it being 100% true, there's maybe just some nugget in there that you think might have something to it for people, that you want people to look at and think about, then the way to, I think, to suggest that, to propose it, is as an artist, to propose that as a work of art artistically, as an exploration of a muse. And you can do that in any field. It can be historical. I just wrote this piece about Ötzi, and I presented it as a whodunit. And I've made no claims. It's an artistic work about Ötzi the Iceman, a speculative fiction about an idea I had, which I wouldn't even say there was any truth in it. Well, the value in it was telling a story about this man and getting a journey of the imagination to imagine this man living 5,000 years ago.
Some will doubtless dismiss the tragic tale to follow as improbable. But to them, I say this. Is it not improbable that Ötzi the Iceman's fragile form fell atop a mountain in the Alps as Stonehenge was being raised over 5,000 years ago, to be preserved intact with all his belongings, to then be exhumed from a glacier that had consumed him whole in the intervening years, to become then world famous as his most intimate secrets were laid bare by a culture wielding what would surely seem to Ötzi magical powers beyond his wildest imaginings. Is all this not highly improbable? So, I say, know ye of little faith, what is one more improbable twist of fate in the tale of Ötzi the Iceman? So, I lay my alternative history of Ötzi's last day alive before you here, for your contemplation.
But in presenting it like that, I don't have to get into any of that head-banging of trying to say this is true and challenging the existing, the established thought around it. Not that I really had any intention of doing it. I wanted to do it as something fun to get people to imagine things. So that's something which has got forgotten, I think. People have got hung up on this idea, free-thinking people exploring ideas. They've got hung up on this idea that it's kind of like the Graham Hancock syndrome to me, in a way. I like Graham Hancock as a he's just like that. He's a radical thinker. He's an ideas man. He goes off and searches and has crazy ideas about things. And there's nothing wrong with that. The trouble is when that kind of exploration, that free exploration, then tries to poise itself, to position itself as a sort of it tries to inject itself into that arena of kind of scholarly academic rigor. And there's just no need to enter that battleground. If you have an idea, pose it as a muse, as an artistic idea. Why do you even want the recognition of that field when you're not part of it? There's no need to be part of it. And if there's something in your idea that you pose in that way, which has genuine value in that world, let them come and find it. There's no need to go to war with them. You can pose your idea in a, and I don't mean making a painting or some abstract work of art. You can pose it, you can, just like that, like a Conan Doyle. You can pose it in a very factually written way, but pose it as, you can create science fiction, for example. Arthur C. Clarke, for example, is credited in ways for inventing he came up with loads of ideas that had real value in the real world, Arthur C. Clarke, in his writing. Satellites, he wrote about satellites. He invented lots of concepts that may actually be built one day. The space elevator, putting something in orbit and having a ladder coming down to the, so to speak, coming down to the Earth in a stationary orbit that could create an elevator. All sorts of things Arthur C. Clarke created, but he didn't pose them. He posed it in his science fiction works. And that way he didn't have to get into battles claiming these things to be kind of, you're free to do that. So I just wanted to say that to the infinitesimally small chance that this message could get through to Terrence, to say, Terrence, don't go looking for the recognition of status of a group that is diametrically opposed to the way you approach thinking, to your completely free enthusiasm and interest, your free roaming interest. If you go into trying to get recognition from that field and to, as he was doing in that thing, to try and take an authoritative stance to teach in them, you're just going to get absolutely trammeled. And not because there might not, because the kind of, with a polymath, the way of it is there might be, and there's an essence of truth in that. It's finding an intersecting point where there is some truth there, and it vaguely appears in the intersection of all these different things, but it's a completely different way of thinking from that specialist way where an idea is completely provable. You're pointing towards the essence of something. And so in that way, it's well poised to, in an artwork, you can do that. And not every statement you make has to be cross-checked and cross-examined. Some of it it's intuitive. There's something in there. So I just wanted, to say, those people who think likewise, try to avoid. There is no need. If there's going to be a kind of, in the general population, a renaissance of free thinking, where we escape all this fact-checking, misinformation, authoritarian ugliness. The way to do it is to just completely circumnavigate that. Don't even go there. Present your ideas to those interested freely as speculative art on a muse. There's no need to go to war against. You're just going to waste energy. And if someone like Terrence got into that, for me, he would have to spend the rest of his life trying to prove one tiny detail of his thinking. He could spend years and years and years trying to formulate an exact, precise paper or something to prove one tiny idea he has, which is just going to completely destroy the flow and what he has to offer, which is his ideas. So just don't do it. He can present what he has. He's already presenting it in those incredible things he's building. He can present that immediately and move on to his, because I know a mind like that, next year he'll have another huge theory to explore and to put forward. If he gets into trying to academically prove every detail of these incredibly interesting thoughts he's having, he's just going to get bogged down in the minutiae. That is not where he's directed. He's a polymath. He's got a mind which finds patterns for huge things to direct specialists towards something there that might be interesting to look at. Somebody with oversight. It's very different. If you get into that specialist arena of trying to categorically prove every word you say, it's a completely diametrically opposed way of thinking to my mind. Yeah. That's just what I wanted to say. Remember, art doesn't have to be abstract, whatever, woolly nonsense. You have science fiction, which hardly needs to even be fiction at all. It can be full of real science, real physics, that can be presented as film, as writing, as long pieces of writing. It can be presented, in any number of ways. You have historical fiction. You can write essays, and if they're posed in, this is just in a speculative way, and if you insert artistry in there, it immediately makes it clear. I am not trying to pose this as some kind of academic paper for freaking peer review. You can be free then to just explore ideas, which is what life's about. It makes not a shred of difference. History, just lastly to say, history, for example, to me, proving the precise date of this or that has, a lot of the time, has absolutely zero real value. It's an academic exercise. What has value is the meaning it brings to us today. And it's the same in those ideas around anything. The value is in what it brings to us and what it creates, the meaning it creates, the explorations it creates in our mind. That's the value. So try not, if you've got that free thinking kind of mind, you don't need to get dragged down into that entrenched battleground. Allow yourself the freedom. Don't go looking for recognition from those who really will not join your side. They won't. Find your playing ground, your field, your playing field has been there for thousands of years, and it's the free-ranging place of speculation, muses and ideas, and that is art. That's it. My little thought for Terrence. Stay dangerous, folks. Cheerio. Bye.